Set it up. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Here we go. All right, let me. Here we go. All right, let's get it popping, man. I ain't gonna waste no time. We're gonna get straight into it. Buenos días. Buenos tardes. Buenas noches. No importa dónde te encuentres mientras escuchas esto. Estás sintonizado en el único podcast deportivo con cerebros y barras. Es una cosa en blanco y negro con A1 y A-Word. No, 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 no. You didn't hit the SAP button on your listening device, or if you're watching live on YouTube. It's just your boy just came from Mexico. And I've been on my Duolingo lately. You know what I'm saying? What's happening? What's happening? Hola, mi amigas. Huh? Y'all good? Y'all good out there? Y'all doing good? I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. Like I said, man, I ain't never been out the country before. I was on the Canadian side of Niagara Falls. That don't really count. This is my first time ever being international. You know, not just felt like I learned a little bit while I was out of town. You know what I'm saying? I just wanted to greet y'all with a little Spanish flair. You know, so that I'm working on being bilingual. You heard? You heard? So we appreciate you joining us this evening. You can check out every episode of It's a Black and White Thing by going to the podcast app of your choice, searching for It's a Black and White Thing, searching for Brains and Bars, rate, review, subscribe, all those good things. You can do the same thing by searching us out on YouTube, by searching Brains and Bars on YouTube, rate, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. We appreciate everyone who checks us out, whether it be in the audio or the visual version of this show. You can check out my guy A Ward. I am A Ward in his absence. He's out today. Let me take off my, I usually call those my scammers, but those were the international travelers right there with me. You can check out my guy A Ward. I am A Ward on, I think it's I am underscore A Ward on Twitter. I think it's I am A Ward on, I almost said Facebook, on Instagram. I'm trying to think any other introductions I need to get out the way. Oh, you can check out the show by checking us. You can check out the show Twitter profile, the Instagram profile, the TikTok profile, the Facebook profile by searching Brains and Bars. Follow us there. If you want to really follow me on Twitter. That's where we're the most heaviest, which is where I am the most of the time. So check us out at Brains and Bars on Twitter. Man, my guy A Ward, he's got some stuff going on tonight. I want to try to make sure that we are consistent with doing weekly shows. So I'm here. I'm solo dolo tonight. I appreciate those of you who are going to be with me over the course of the next 30 to 45 minutes, maybe an hour long, as we talk about NBA in-season tournament recap, as we talk about what happened in week 14 of the NFL, looking ahead to week 15 of the NFL. Got an interesting show lined up for you tonight. And if you want to join me, you're more than welcome to join in by commenting. I might throw the StreamYard link out there. So if you want to jump in, talk to me about what you want to talk about for a couple of minutes, you're more than welcome to. I might throw that in the Facebook podcast group. So check us out. All right. So let's get into it, man. Let's have some fun tonight. All right. What else you doing on this Thursday night? I know y'all not watching that football game tonight. I know you not watching that football game with two backup quarterbacks. No Keenan Allen, no Josh Jacobs, no Justin Herbert. I mean, the Raiders ain't had no quarterback even when they had Jimmy G there. So, yeah, Aiden O'Connell, I know you're not watching that. Even if you got people fantasy-wise, gambling-wise, man, listen, don't waste your time. Friends, let me hip you to something. Friends don't let friends watch bad football. And what you're going to be subjected to tonight on Thursday Night Football is bad football. Believe me. Don't waste your time. Kick it with your boy for the next 30 to 45 minutes and go on with the rest of your night. Do what you got to do. Be cool how you be cool. All right. All right. So let's get into it, man. Let's get into the NBA first. Over the weekend, you had the NBA Cup, the in-season tournament wrapped up in Vegas. The Los Angeles Lakers took home the inaugural NBA Cup and were crowned champions of the first one. And I just kind of want to give a quick little recap of the tournament. I thought it was a pretty dope tournament, a pretty interesting setup um, as someone who has become someone who has been an NBA fan who has said that the NBA is the best league around. Even I have to admit that as I have gotten older, I have become more hyper focused around college football, pro football than I have the NBA. And I normally do not tune into the NBA until Christmas. I kind of watch a game here and there. I do not partake, even though I have League Pass, I haven't in the past few years have not been as heavily involved in NBA League Pass as I have in other years. But the in season tournament caught my attention because I was interested to see what it was going to look like, what the atmosphere would look like for the players. Would it have a playoff type atmosphere? Would the games be a little bit more intense than a normal regular season game? And I think that the NBA got that right. If you watch games like in the in season tournament between the Thunder and the Warriors. That game came down to the buzzer. That game had a lot of intensity to it. There were games that the Bucks, and I want to say maybe the Celtics. I forget who they played, but it might have been the Celtics, where that game had a lot of hype. So no, it wasn't the Celtics. They were in different tiers, but there were just different games across the board that had more of a playoff feel and atmosphere to it. I think the Kings and uh, the Warriors played a lot of high intensity basketball games during the in season tournament where they had you the players played as if there was more at stake and as if there was more going than just a regular run of this mill game going on. And so to me, the NBA nailed it from that aspect. I thought it was pretty cool. We talked about the courts, we talked about the designs. You either loved it or hated it. I don't feel like there was really in between there. And so again, I thought they got a lot of this right. And I think if you watched, for example, the NBA Cup gave you an opportunity to almost like the NCAA tournament to create new stars. And I feel like the Indiana Pacers and Tyrese Halliburton was the equivalent of a NC, the 12 seed that has a really good player and a decent team that got introduced to America at large. And to me, what really drives that point home is when the Pacers played the Celtics in the quarterfinals, right? That first round knockout stage game. And I had one of my homies, shout out to my homie Dre. My homie Dre was like, his son was like, man, the Pacers, who cares about the Pacers, right? As this game was in its early stages, then Tyrese Halliburton starts to go crazy in the second half. And he's like, yo, like this Pacers team is crazy. Tyrese Halliburton is going off. Like I'm interested in who he is and who in this team now. And to me, I've heard little anecdotes like that throughout that entire run of the NBA Cup of people being introduced to new players, being introduced to new teams, people finding out about Oklahoma City and the fact that this is a real team. This is a team that made the play-in tournament last year for the playoffs, right? They didn't make it into the actual big dance in the playoffs, but they were competitive, they were interesting, and now you're seeing them with Chet Holmgren, with SGA, who might be a top 5 player in the league right now. With oh man, I'm blanking on the young man's name. I think it's Jalen Williams. Jalen Williams, right? They have two Jalen Williams, but the one that the guard forward Jalen Williams being introduced to those guys, Lou Dort, right? These players that you might not have paid attention to before, you're paying attention to them now. And it to me that was cool. That was fun, right? To see America get introduced to those teams. I also think that the Lakers winning it for your first one, I think, is the outcome that you wanted. You wanted a glamour franchise, your Bostons, your LAs, your Miamis, to walk away with the championship. And I think having a LeBron led team walking away with the championship is a good outcome for the league. And I'm not mad at that. I also think one of the cool things that I think came out of this, that if you are a fan of the 80s and 90s, that you liked was the fact that you got a little rivalry that came out of the IST, right? So I'm interested to see the next time Celtics and Pacers play each other. The way NBA rules are is that when the game is over, you normally dribble the clock out. You don't try to score to show up the other team. But you had at the end of Celtics Pacers, you had Aaron Nesmith, who used to be a Celtic, emphatically dunking the ball. Arena's going crazy. Pacers go crazy. So I'm curious to see the next time those two teams match up, what the energy is like between those two. The Celtics didn't seem to take it any type of way or seem like they felt any type of way, but we won't know until they match up again. But another game involving the Pacers, who, if you have watched them play, are basically first their theology, their ideology, their methodology for their team is first to 130 wins. Right? I've tweeted out that the Pacers are basically all offense and vibes. That's it. Right? They're not playing defense. They don't really care about defense. They want you to score just so they can get the ball back and try to score in their end. And when they took on the Bucks in the semifinals of the NBA Cup, it was an intense game. It was a heated game. You had Tyrese Halliburton hitting the big shot, and then he does the Dame time Selly, right? He's pointing to it's his time now. And then just last night they had another matchup. The Bucks handily defeated the Pacers. Giannis goes for, I believe, a team record 64 points. And then you had the whole incident after the game where Giannis wants the ball. He's running through the hallways. I think they were in Milwaukee. He's running in the bowels of, I think it's the Fiserv Arena, trying to find the basketball that they have given to Oscar Tshiebwe because he scored his first point. You can now, granted, I know there's a site that purports to have the audio of what happened, so you can hear players saying, "Go get the ball, get out of here." Don't give it to him. Don't give it to him. You can hear all this kind of back and forth going on about this basketball. Giannis wants his ball and he wants to go home. The Pacers have it. He was given a basketball, but then there's some thought that might not have been the actual game ball, that they just gave him a basketball. So you have these small little rivalries that you have the opportunity to create within the IST that going forward I think should be interesting. And I'm curious to hear what y'all think. Do y'all think that the in-season tournament was successful, that it was a good tournament, that it is something that you would tune into next year? Shout out to Ethan Strauss, who is a writer who has covered the NBA for a long time, both on a national level, local level. He covered the Warriors for a bit during the height of their run. And he wrote an article saying that the IC was a failure because it didn't generate large headlines. And I don't agree with that take. I don't think that that this is something that you can measure in terms of success right away. To me, the future of the IST is going to be determined on what happens 5 years from now. How in tune are we in next year, right? When this thing rolls around next year, how in tune will the NBA populace be? How in tune will the casual fan? This is something that's going to take years of ramp up to generate that casual fan interest. But I tell you this much. Next year, when you have the highlight, when it's time for this thing to be rolled out again, and we get an actual, like almost like a schedule release, right? When you start to say, "Oh, who's going to be in Group A? Who's going to be in Group B?" Right? And when you start to have these matchups and these interesting pool play matchups roll out, where they treat it like that and build some hype around it. I think this first year was kind of like, "All right, guys, here it is, in-season tournament. This is what we're doing." Here, go to this page to read the frequently asked questions, which I did several times to try to decipher what exactly what this meant, what's going on, how it works, so on and so forth. When you get that highlights package and you start to see, LeBron holding up that small trophy, right, with I think it was medals or wrist. I forget what the actual title, right, because they didn't get rings. Right, when you start to see them with the medals and you see him holding up the trophy, you see some of Tyrese Halliburton's performance, SGA's performances, Steph's performances, Luka's performances. So you start to see what these guys were doing on this court, and you have that highlights package, so you'll start to really see if this is taking hold with fans, which I think it's a great idea. It's got people to talk about the NBA regular season before Christmas in ways I have not seen in quite some time. And so, yeah, I think it was a success for this first go round, right? I think it's going to pick up more casual fans to pay attention to smaller market teams. I think it was great that you had a New Orleans, you had an Indiana in that quarterfinal group. And I think if you start to have more of those small market teams, That's something that the league is going to be happy with because you're getting the eyes of America on those things. Now, I'm curious to also see what tweaks they're going to make to the in-season tournament. And I saw this on Twitter, and I didn't get the username because it wasn't like a prominent user. It was just a regular Joe like myself who said they need to move the tournament to conclude on Christmas Day, and I think that's a really great idea. Christmas for a lot of people is seen as the true start of the NBA season. You normally have blockbuster matchups, and if you could somehow program it to where you have in that early afternoon time slot or even the late evening time slot because it is Vegas, if you could have the finals of the NBA Cup take place during Christmas Day when you're going to have some of your the biggest from a viewership standpoint, biggest amount of viewers watching during that time, I think that's a great idea, especially if you're going to have a team like an Indiana or a New Orleans or an OKC or in a couple of years, right? If San Antonio can figure out what they're doing, you can have a San Antonio and a Victor Wembanyama as the highlight of one of your NBA Cup championship games. I think that's a great idea. I think it's harder for the NBA to pull off because you have part of the reason they did this so early. Shout out to Mama Ward in the building. I appreciate you. Part of the reason why the NBA does the NBA season in-season tournament so early is because of the scheduling. You're basically taking a bunch of matchups and just throwing them all together, right? So you're trying to if you wait till later in the season, now you have other teams who have played each other. You want to try to maintain your schedule balance. And the later you wait to throw that tournament on, the harder it is to schedule these matchups because teams might have already played each other once, maybe twice, right? And so you're trying to keep that schedule balanced. And so I understand why they do it so early in the season. But if they could somehow push it back a couple of weeks so that it concludes on Christmas Day, to me, that's a win for the league. It's a win for those teams. That's something that they should embrace. I think the other part of the tournament that I find to be interesting, that I'm curious about as it goes forward, you have LeBron James and the Lakers winning it, right? And so you have LeBron James, even in year 21, is still the face of the NBA, right? Like that, he is still the man. And so with him getting to a place where this could be his last year in the league, right? We don't know what's going to happen. Maybe he tries to hold on and wait for Bronny to join the league so he can say that he played against him. But if we get to a space where let's say LeBron retires after this year, who is the next face of the league? Right? We had this issue in the post Jordan era of trying to find who was the defining face of the league. I think collectively you had Shaq and Kobe in those early years, and then those were the default de facto guys until we got LeBron. Who is the next face of the league? Is it Victor? Is it Joel? Is it shout out to my guy Vita Van Pelt? He says Luka is in position to be the next face, but are we as Americans here to have for lack of a better term, an immigrant, right? To have a non-American be the face of the league. I thought Ja Morant was going to be that guy, but Ja Morant has dropped the ball in a lot of ways. So who's going to be that next face? Like if LeBron is not with the Lakers next year, is it Tatum? Is it Luka? Joel is definitely a charismatic face, right? He's definitely someone who's not afraid of the camera, not afraid of the limelight. Is it Victor? Who is that going to be? So y'all hit me up and let me know. So from an American standpoint, Tatum, Booker, yeah. Tatum or Booker, I think is a good idea from an American standpoint. I think Tyrese Halliburton, he doesn't play in a large market. So, would he look at moving to an LA, right? Like, do the Lakers say, hey, we don't have LeBron anymore. We need a new star. Do we get Tyrese Halliburton? I think he is a low key, but somewhat charismatic guy. So, I find that to me, that's what I want to know. Um, I like Jason Tatum. So this comment, Jason Tatum is extremely accomplished without that ring and MVP. Yeah, I mean Tavita, yeah, he is, but I don't know if Tatum is necessarily a charismatic face from an American standpoint. Um, don't this comment says, "Don't worry, in 2 years the NBA will move Lamelo to LA." Listen, that might be the move, right? Like, I mean, that again, once LeBron is gone, you don't have a cares like a top face in the NBA that you can say that this is the guy, right? And they're going to have to figure something out. So we'll see what happens. Y'all let me know who y'all think. Who should be the next face of the league once LeBron steps away from the NBA? I want to say this too, right? I've been critical of the NBA in terms of its broadcast partners, in terms of them not being pro basketball, right? There's always a lot of critique. There's always a lot of hate. And I want to close out on this by saying this, right? Charles Barkley said he was going to roast the Lakers because they were going to put a banner up for winning the in-season tournament. And I find that to be anyone who wants to criticize them for putting up a banner, I find to be hypocritical. And here's why. We in America love winning. We glorify winners to a fault, right? We exalt Michael Jordan. We exalt Tom Brady. Bill Russell. I'm trying to think other great winners, like in terms of brands and franchises, the Yankees, the Lakers, the Celtics, right? These are glamour franchises in part because they are winners, right? The Patriots still hold a spot in our collective consciousness because of what they accomplished over the last 20 years. So this idea that we are going to denigrate the Lakers because they are celebrating an accomplishment to me. And when I what I'm interested in seeing is as LeBron transitions out of basketball, will he take up that mantle as an ambassador for the game that kind of Kobe had? If you listen to the show, you know I've said this before that one of the greatest losses that the NBA took in losing Kobe Bryant so early is that he was setting himself up to be an ambassador for the game that pushed the game from an X's and O's standpoint, kind of how people look at Peyton Manning and what he does with his brother, right? Except with his show Detail on ESPN, he was pushing the X's and O's of the game to instruct and enlighten casual NBA fans about the intricacies of basketball and to make it fun, right? To appreciate what you're watching. And so I do wonder if LeBron, as he starts to fade out the scene as a player, if he'll pick up that mantle. Now, a guy who I think who would be perfect for that because he loves basketball, he's passionate about it, is KG. I think KG would be perfect to be that type of ambassador for the game because if you watch his clips, you watch him talk about basketball, you watch him talk about celebrating these new stars and being appreciative of what we're watching. Shout out to JC in the building. What's up, JC? He loves the game. The only problem with having KG be the face of the game and be that brand ambassador, that brother love cussing. Like, he is perfect where he is right now on Showtime because he gets to drop all the F-bombs, all the N-words, all whatever cuss words you want. KG's going to say it, right? But if he could somehow find a way to muzzle his want and his willingness to drop curse words on national TV, he could absolutely be that brand ambassador that the league needs to get the casual fan into the game and to watch regular season basketball games. I think this is a great analogy. Tavita says KG is the Bernie Mac mentor. Like, absolutely. Like, he's going to speak his mind. He's going to say what he wants, when he wants, and he's going to do it with lots of cursing. And that's fine. That's fine. But I mean, like I said, I think he would be perfect for that. Y'all let me know who y'all think, man. Let me know who y'all think should be the next face of the league. Let me know who y'all think would be a great brand ambassador if it's not LeBron. Holla at me. Also, if you're on Facebook, if you're on my personal Facebook page, I just dropped in the comments a link. If you want to pull up on the show, you can while I'm here for the next 20 to 30 minutes. All right, man, let's jump into the NFL, right? NFL week 14 just went down. And we had a couple of interesting storylines. Somehow the Chiefs find themselves at the center of controversy, at the center of attention once again. They had the game against they had their game against I'm blanking on who they just played here. The Bills, right? 325 CBS game goes down to the wire. One of the final plays of the game, we've all seen it, right? The pass to Travis Kelce, Travis laterals back to Kadarius Toney. They score the touchdown. However, a flag on the play, Kadarius lined up offsides. A penalty you rarely see called. Play comes back, Chiefs lose. All right. So I want to highlight Chiefs fans real quick because I want to get to the larger point about that particular play. I've seen a lot of talk about, the offense, they're getting better. Rashee Rice is getting more snaps. It seems like they're getting a good rotation. They're getting a good, consistent rotation of guys. They just got to stop the stupid penalties. They just got to stop dropping passes. They just got to stop. And I don't know what the 5 stages of grief are. Right? Let me look it up real quick. What are the 5 stages of grief? Because I feel like we are in the denial stage as it relates to Chiefs fans. All right. So let me see. Okay, this is not giving me exactly what I thought in terms of the 5 stages of grief. Are there 7 stages or 5? Y'all help me out. I don't know. Anyway, the Chiefs fans are in denial. We are in week 14, headed to week 15, and even Travis Kelce said, we're going to figure it out. He says, I understand we sound like a broken record at this point of saying that we're going to get it together. And I don't know how you can have I guess I understand why you have to have optimism, right? Because it's your favorite team. You have to have optimism because it's your squad. You have to have hope. And then in past seasons, where the Chiefs have had these little issues with their offense or with their team in general, they've been able to turn it around and they've been able to make deep playoff runs, if not win the Super Bowl. But as it relates to your offense, penalties are a problem. Execution is a problem. Focus is a problem. And it's been a problem all season long. And I don't know how you can have hope that this team is going to fix those things with only 4 games left in the season, right? And I remember around early October, there was all this talk about, oh man, the Chiefs Arrowhead invitation is on again. We about to have the division wrapped up by Halloween. The Chargers stink. The Raiders stink. The Broncos stink because they were 1-5 at that point. And now you look up with 4 weeks left to play. You are only 1 game ahead of the Broncos. And listen, I don't know if the Broncos will win all their games, but I think if you had this question, which fan base should be more confident that their team can go and undefeated down the stretch, it's the Broncos. Because they should be favorites in all of their remaining games. All right, let me see who they got left on this schedule here. They got nope, almost said the wrong team. They got the Lions. I mean, the Lions are at home. They should be favorites in that game. If not, it should be really close in terms of the spread. But the Lions have been going backwards as of late. They got the Patriots. That should be a dub. They got the Chargers. The Chargers just lost their quarterback for the year. And they got the Raiders. Now, granted, that's a road game to close out the season, but it's still the Raiders who are starting a rookie quarterback. The Broncos should feel very confident that they can win the last 4 games. The Chiefs should feel confident that they can win their last 4 games. The Patriots stink. The Raiders, you were down 14-0 to the Raiders just 2-3 weeks ago, right? Now, granted, they went on the 31-3 run to close it out, but they were down 14-0. The Bengals, look, Jake Browning looks like a competent NFL quarterback. So that's not a gimme anymore. And the Chargers, yes, you should beat them because they lost their starting quarterback, right? But again, I don't know how confident I would be as a Chiefs fan when the same issues that have been a problem week 7 are still a problem in week 14. And I don't know how you fix that at this point. Now, let's talk about the play in general here. The Kadarius Toney play. He lines up offside. Patrick Mahomes is going off, and I understand people on the internet want to call him a crybaby. Oh, they're crying. He's the golden boy. He gets all the calls. So I'll address that in just a second. Yes, the officials got the play right. But I do think the Chiefs have a legitimate gripe about officiating as a whole. You had the Jawan Taylor issue where he was being cited for being likely, where when you look across the league, tackles all across the league are lining up too far off the line of scrimmage. Jawan Taylor was being flagged for false starts, where again, I have said this repeatedly, both here and on social media. Lane Johnson is the OG of quick starts. He is always starting a half a second, a millisecond before the ball is snapped and he's moving backwards. And you look across the league. This is happening league-wide, but yet only one right tackle was being flagged for it consistently. That was Jawan Taylor. By now, you've seen the video of Kadarius Toney lining up offside all game long. And I'll say this, because Mahomes made mention of it. As far as that particular part of the game goes, I can equate what Toney was doing to when you take the SAT. And when you take the SAT, at least when you used to, I'm old, so maybe they don't do this anymore. You used to get points for spelling your name right. Kadarius Toney, by lining up offside all the time, is not spelling his name correctly. Like that's what's happening with him. He's not spelling his name right on the paper. By line, all you got, and my thing with Toney is he's in the slot. So all you got to do is look down at the ball and go, man, is my head even with that ball? If my head is even with that ball, that means my foot is likely even with the ball. If not past it, I need to take a step back. So there's that. But I think the Chiefs do have a right to be upset with the officiating. I have tweeted out several times this year that the NFL has a refereeing problem because there are times when obvious penalties, I'll talk about the Chiefs against the Packers, right? Obvious pass interference call. Now, the call on Mahomes where he gets the roughing, the unnecessary roughness penalty because he gets hit on his way out of bounds, that's a bang play, and the officials are going to always look to protect quarterbacks, right? So while it's the wrong call, bang play, I get it, right? But then you look across the league, man. As a Niner fan, I felt the game against the Browns was not officiated well on both sides, but it definitely didn't benefit the Chiefs. The Niners. And so with the margins being so slim between who is good, because there is no great team in the NFL this year. The Niners are probably the closest we have to a great team, but even they are capable of hiccups. So without there being a clear, in a way, great team in the league this year, the margins are thinner than ever before. These calls are game-altering calls. Now, the Chiefs had opportunities to win the game against the Packers. They had opportunities to still get into field goal range or to score a touchdown against the Bills. They didn't do it. However, when you are missing these calls, that messes with the mentality of a team. It really does. And so it is incumbent upon the NFL to do whatever they can to fix this. To me, the big fix is you need to have what is called, like in soccer, they have a video assisted review model, right? That will take the time to check a play to see if a potential handball has happened, if a red card needs to be assessed in a match. To me, the NFL, you got the home office who's watching every game as it is. If they get a call wrong, the NFL VAR should step in and say, hey, that was pass interference, guys. Like, we want to make sure that we are officiating these games correctly and that we are being fair to all teams to give them an opportunity to compete for a championship. Because that Packers game, this Bills game could be the difference for the Chiefs between having home field advantage and playing a game in Arrowhead or having to go to Baltimore or Miami or potentially Jacksonville, right? Like These are the differences between winning and losing. And as Roger Goodell came out and said today that, well, I don't understand what all the hubbub is. The call was the right call. Our officials do a great job. They do a pretty good job. It's not excellent. It's not great. Whatever adjective he used to describe their performance. Because the thing that the NFL's got to be careful of is some fan or fans getting screwed out of a gambling bet that they've made and deciding to file a class action lawsuit against the league. To me, that's the thing they've got to be careful of. And they've got to get this cleaned up because at some point, some fan, and they've already tried it once, right? Some fans try to get together and file a lawsuit against the league because they felt that the Bengals did not disclose that Joe Burrow's arm was hurt. He ends up tearing a tendon and he's done for the season, right? And so at some point, Dad, what's going on? At some point, an official is going to blow a call in a playoff game, in a do or die game, in a regular season, or the playoffs, or the Super Bowl, and a large contingency of people who have money on the game are going to try to sue because they're going to say, because of the incompetence of your officiating, it cost me money. And because it cost me money, I want my bread back. I want what I lost because of you. Now, maybe the courts throw it out. Maybe the courts say, hey, this is the risk you take when you gamble, so on and so forth. But the NFL has at its disposal right now the ability to not allow the 2 or 3 calls a game that end up being the talking points of that following week not happen. And they're doing nothing. They're just letting it happen. They're just letting bad calls stand because, well, they're the NFL and you're going to watch. Okay. Don't test the collective wills of people. Don't, especially as it relates to their pockets. That's all I'm saying, Roger. Somebody let Roger see this segment. Hey, you might want to talk with the officials in the offseason about having a VAR system in place to look at roughing penalties, to look at pass interference. To me, those are the 2 big ones. Those are the 2 big ones that they need to have oversight on because those are spot fouls in the case of pass interference. There are 15-yard penalties, automatic first downs on roughing and unnecessary roughness calls, especially on quarterbacks in the pocket. And sometimes they do not get them right. And in a sport where rules are black and white, shout out to the show, there is no gray area with NFL rules. You need to make sure if there's no room for nuance, if there's no room for gray area, if it's either a foul or it is not, you need to make sure that you are getting not just the small ones right, but also the big ones. Y'all let me know what y'all think, man. What should the NFL do about its officiating system? Is it perfectly fine? Does it need some type of reform? Does it need some type of change? Does it need a review system in place to have some type of oversight for these type of calls? Let me know what y'all think, man. All right, man, let's keep it moving. So let's talk about the Cowboys real quick. Let's talk about the boys real quick, man. So the Cowboys, they had a huge game Sunday night. They defeated the Eagles. Forgive me, I don't know the final score. I think it was like 30-13 or something like that. And guys, do we got to start taking the Cowboys serious? I feel like we got to start taking the Cowboys serious. Shout out to my uncle. He says hire full-time referees. I don't think that fixes the problem, by the way. I don't think hiring full-time referees is the fix for this issue. I do think they need a video review over top of it. But back to the Cowboys. I'll put it to you like this. Now this is a terrible analogy because the Cowboys have had more success than the team I'm about to mention. 2014, 2015, I living in Kansas City, I'm a Cubs fan, but I'm not a supporter of the Royals. I don't really care if they do well or not. It's better for the city when the Royals are good. But they got to be 2014, they got to be really good. They were a wild card team. They ended up making the World Series. They lose in Game 7 to the San Francisco Giants. And during that run, I said, listen, hey Royals, don't play with my friends' hearts here. Because I have several friends who are super Royals fans. They're really into the team. And I'm like, look, don't play with their hearts. Don't build their hopes up just to crush them. Right. And I say over the years, the Cowboys, over the last, like, since during the Dak era, right? They have played with the hearts of the fans of their franchise. They've gotten their hopes up. First of all, it's not like it takes a lot to get Cowboys' hopes up because every year they think they're going to the Super Bowl. Every year they think they're going to win the Super Bowl. So it's not as if it takes a lot to get their hearts and their blood pressure pumping anyway. But there have been times, moments of over this Dak era where they've been really good and they have gotten the hopes of their fans up that they could be something more. Right. And so, they are now what, 10-3. They just had a huge win over the Eagles. They are pretty much unstoppable at home. They now lead the division. They're the number 2 team in the NFC behind the Niners. And I think it might be time to take this team serious. I don't know if the Niners go on the road to San Francisco if they can beat them. I think they're definitely going to be motivated if they go to San Francisco. I do think they have the confidence that no matter where if they have to, let's just say they lose their next game, right? I don't know what their schedule is, and I can look it up real quick. But let's just say they lose one more game, they end up as a wild card team, not a division winner. They have the confidence with how they played in Philadelphia and how they played at home against Philadelphia that if they have to see them, that they can beat them. But their schedule is really tough. They got Bills, Dolphins, Lions back to back to back. Only one of those games will be at home. They're at Buffalo, at Miami, back to back. And again, I think we have to take the Dallas Cowboys for the first time in a long time as a serious threat to win the NFC. And I think they now have the confidence outside of San Francisco that if they go to Philly, they go to Detroit, they go, oh, God forbid, they have to go to like Atlanta or some terrible NFC South team to play in the first round of the playoffs, that they can win and compete and beat anybody. To me, the last hurdle, the final step for them is they got to beat San Francisco. They got to be competitive. They really haven't been competitive with San Francisco in the last 2 games. But yeah, I think the Cowboys are a team that we have to take serious. Dak, granted, while I don't think a quarterback should be the MVP, Dak is playing at an MVP level. Dak is, I think, the leading candidate for MVP. And I think listen, the last thing I want is the Cowboys to win a championship because on the list of insufferable fan bases that could potentially win a championship, they are number 1 with the bullet. Absolute, like, you do not want them to win a title because the gloating, the pats on the back, the Weedham boys, it is going to be a lot, guys. Listen, my dad is in the comments now. The Cowboys will win the Super Bowl this year. That's their default setting, people. Like, this is their default setting, but this team gives them good reason to believe that this could, in fact, be the year. And listen, the Eagles have got some soul searching to do. They went through their gauntlet mostly unscathed. I think they went 4-2 on this huge stretch they had, and salute to them. But they've got some things they got to figure out as it relates to the best 2 teams in the conference right now that they're competing with for a championship. So oh man, my uncle said if we win the Super Bowl, the internet better shut down. And I'll say this about the NFC as a whole before I jump to the next topic. To me, the best teams in the NFL reside in the NFC. Shout out to Baltimore, but if I had to have my own personal power rankings, to me, it's the Niners, it's the Cowboys. I guess I should take Baltimore at 3, and then I would put Philly at 4. To me, those are the top 4 teams, and then pick a team for the 5th one. Dolphins, Chiefs, Lions. Pick a team for 5. Who cares? But to me, those are the 4 best teams in the NFL, and 3 of them are from the NFC. And so, to me, if any 3 of those teams win, no matter who the opponent is on the AFC side, they should be the betting favorite in a Super Bowl matchup. So we'll see. But speaking of MVPs, great quarterback play. Cam Newton had some comments he made about Tua Tagovailoa, Dak Prescott, and Brock Purdy, and he said that they are game managers, that they are not game changers. And that has caused a lot of chatter on social media. And let me say this: Dak Prescott is playing really high level football right now. Brock Purdy is playing really high level. Like in almost every advanced metric you care to name, Brock Purdy is either one or two. If he is not one or two, he is likely top five or top 10. And first of all, let me say, when did being a game manager become a bad thing? Why is it a bad thing if you are simply a game manager? Right? Like everybody can't be Mahomes. Everybody can't be Josh Allen. Everybody can't be, I'll throw Joe Burrow in that mix. Everybody cannot be top tier elite quarterbacks. And if you are hoping to find that, you are going to be desperately disappointed because it is really hard. Those are one-on-ones, right? They don't make those every day. Those models are not coming out on the showroom floor yearly, right? These are once a generation quarterbacks. And so if you can find a Dak Prescott who can distribute the ball, keep the turnovers down, lead drives, get your team into a place where they get a lead and your defense can now pin its ears back and go after the quarterback. What is wrong with that? Like I really don't. I really am truly trying to understand what is wrong with that. That's number one. Number two, as a Niners fan, I need y'all to stop fronting on Brock Purdy. Like, listen, shout out to Nick Wright, shout out to Steven Ruiz from The Ringer, and whoever else is out there still not believing in Brock Purdy. That's first of all, that's your right? That's your prerogative. But to me, you can no longer continue to front on these gentlemen, right? I get it. Brock Purdy has an all-pro left tackle, all-pro tight end, all-pro wide receiver. Brandon Ayuk, if he was on a team that wasn't as run focused as the 49ers, would probably be a top five wide receiver in football. I want to say that again. Brandon Ayuk, if he was on a different team that was more pass focused, would be a top five wide receiver in the game. He is that good, right? But when you have all these other players around him, and last but not least, you got an all-pro wide receiver in Christian McCaffrey and a great defense and a great, like, why do we have to apologize? Why should he have to apologize for those things? Why should Dak have to apologize for having an ascending tight end in Ferguson, or having a Pollard, having a good defense? Why do they have to apologize? It's a team sport, guys. Hello, it's a team sport. So yes, you need all of those pieces, because you look at what's happening in Kansas City. You look at what's happening with Mahomes, and he is essentially being told, you have to make it happen for everybody on offense, because if you don't make it happen, it's not going to happen. And you look at the frustration that he's having right now when he's looking at wide receivers line up outside, when he's looking at tackles being set ineligibly, when he's looking at tackles getting holding calls, when he's looking at offenses bogging down, drop passes, all of this, and it is boiling over for him because it is not getting fixed. If the Kansas City Chiefs simply could have receivers who could hold on to passes, they might have one loss this year. One. So no, Brock Purdy should not have to apologize for having great talent around him, because guess what, guys? He still got to deliver the ball to him. Tua still has to deliver the ball to those weapons. Dak still has to deliver the ball. And so whether they are scheming themselves open, whether it's great route running, great schematic setup against a defense, whatever, you still got to make the plays. And those guys are doing it. And they're doing it. This comment says it. Purdy is a top-level QB in the NFL. I have to give him that. They're doing it at the highest of levels. And they should not have to be made to feel bad or apologize or knock down a peg simply because they have great talent around them. That is the purpose of having a team, a GM, to build a roster that is set up in such a way that you don't need superhuman efforts from your quarterback to win games because it is a team game. And if you look across the landscape of the NFL at the teams that make the Super Bowl and that win the Super Bowl, there are people there who are not elite all time quarterbacks. Brad Johnson, Rich Gannon, Joe Flacco, Eli Manning, not Chris Winkie. I can see Jake Delhomme, Matt Ryan, Nick Foles. Like the list goes on and on and on. You need a great team around you. And if you have a great team around you, then you can take a Brock Purdy and go to you can take a Jimmy Garoppolo, my God, and go to a Super Bowl. My aunt says Purdy is crazy. He plays on a rookie contract next year. He's definitely outplayed his contract. I have to look up how that works. I think he might be eligible for a new deal after this season, or it might be one more season. All of those things that I've said aside, the Niners should be wary of signing Brock to a major deal. Should he get a raise? Absolutely. Should he get Mahomes level money? Absolutely not. Because I do think signing that type of deal then means the level of talent around him slips. And yes, his play will slip some. To what degree it slips is up to him, right? Because here's the thing about a quarterback: the quarterback can elevate the level of play. And I think you've seen all of those gentlemen do that at certain times this year. But when you start pulling pieces off the board, you're asking at that point your quarterback to make up for whatever we lose on the offensive line, at the skill positions, on the defense. Whatever we lose there in terms of top tier talent, you have to make up that difference. And that's where the Josh Allens of the world come into play. That's where the Mahomes and the Burrows come into play, because you can take these things off the table for those guys and they can still make it happen. Yes, he's earned a raise, but I mean, he's not going to be able to get a raise without this comment says I'm saying a raise, not top QB money. Yes, he's earned a raise for sure, but you're not going to take him from 800,000 to 15 million and think that's going to be enough. It's going to be in 20-25 million dollars. To me, when you get into 30 for Purdy, to me that now that's too rich for my blood personally. But his play has warranted that kind of money. So we'll see what happens on that standpoint. Let me see. Are there any games worth talking about here in week 15? I do not think so. I mean, nah, nah. I think I'm about to call it a night, guys. I mean, Cowboys, Bills is and Eagles, Seahawks are going to be interesting because of the NFC East race. Bills. So I'll say this about the AFC. Bills, Bengals. I put up a poll at Brains and Bars on Twitter around weeks 8 or 9, and I asked the question: if you had to place a bet on which team is going to make the playoffs at this point, because at that point I think they were both below 500, who would you take? Bills or Bengals? The poll results favor the Bengals over the Bills. I personally thought the Bills were in better shape because I thought their schedule was not the gauntlet was not as steep for them as it was for the Bills, and I thought their division was an easier climb given the Jets and the Patriots. Right now, I believe those two teams are 10th and 11th place. I still believe that the Bills can make the playoffs just because, one, they still have their starting quarterback. Two, because teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers who are starting to fall off. Their ride is turning back into a pumpkin. But it'll be interesting to see if those two teams can make the playoffs, because they have dug themselves into a huge hole. They're going to require a lot of help to make it to the playoffs. However, if by chance they should happen to make it to the playoffs, the Bills in particular, for me, that is the team that I think can come out of the AFC and go to the Super Bowl. Because if you look at this right now, here are the quarterbacks that are currently in the playoff picture: Lamar Jackson, Tua, Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, whoever the Cleveland Browns are starting right now, Joe Flacco, Mitch Trubisky, or Kenny Pickett for the Steelers. The Colts with Gardner Minshew. CJ Stroud's a rookie. Russell Wilson, they're not asking him to do a lot. And then the last team in front of Buffalo is Jake Browning, right? Like, obviously at the top, it's a top-heavy list, but I think the Buffalo Bills can compete with the Baltimore Ravens. I think they can compete. They already blown out Miami once. They've beaten Kansas City. They can complete. They lost to Jacksonville, but they can compete with Jacksonville. They can beat, like, to me, they have, shout out to Lamar Jackson, they have the best quarterback remaining, because when Josh Allen is on, he is Thanos, and he is incredibly hard to stop. So I don't know what's going to happen in the AFC. I think part of the optimism of Chiefs fans is they're looking around at the quarterbacks who are competing for playoff spots and Super Bowl spots, and they don't see a lot of names that they fear. I would caution them by saying this: your team is asking your quarterback to put its entire team, at least offensively, on its back and carry it. There's no room for error offensively for the Chiefs. For all of these other teams, including teams like that's too far. But the Jaguars, the Bills, the Ravens, there's margins of error for them because their skill position players are more reliable than what's happening in Kansas City. So I'll be curious to see what happens on that end, and see how these AFC playoffs shake out. I think there's a clear hierarchy at the top of the NFC. You got the Eagles, Cowboys, and Niners. And then there's the next level, and then there's everybody else. But we'll see what's going to happen, man. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Hit me up at Brains and Bars. Who do you have at this juncture being your Super Bowl representative? If I had to put two names out there, I would go Baltimore and San Francisco. I do think those are the two most complete teams in the NFC and AFC respectively. So if I had to make a choice at this going into Week 15, Baltimore, San Francisco. But hey, it's a week-to-week league, and these things change on a dime. Y'all let me know who y'all think. Who y'all got going to the Super Bowl this year at this point? Yeah, will that change for you depending on what happens in Week 15? Hit me up at Brains and Bars on Twitter or Facebook, and Instagram. That's the show for tonight. I'm out of here. I'm a little pooped from all the Mexican travels, Puerto Vallarta living. So I'm about to get up out of here, kick it with the family for the rest of the night. Y'all be easy. How y'all be easy. Please remember, you can check out every episode of It's a Black and White Thing. Going to the podcast app of your choice, searching for It's a Black and White Thing or Brains and Bars. You can also follow us on YouTube. Shout out to those who watch me on YouTube, at Brains and Bars. Rate, subscribe, comment, share. I appreciate everybody who joins me each week. Try to have this episode up tomorrow. Until next time, y'all be easy. Good night.